Good morning and welcome to our Jersey Ready Beyond Brexit virtual conference. As I speak to you this morning, the UK and EU continue to negotiate the terms of their future relationship, which will come into effect from 1st of January next year. Our preparations for this date, the end of the transition period, continue across government. Many of the changes that will be coming into effect and what this will mean for local business, travel and trade will be covered over the course of our event. And we will be speaking to local EU traders, fishermen and members of the EU honorary consuls, to name but a few. Whilst we are hopeful that a UK-EU deal will be struck, there remains the possibility that no agreement is reached and we find ourselves in a no further negotiated outcome, or NFNO. As a government, we have been preparing for such a scenario since the outcome of the referendum in June 2016. The structures we have in place to manage the COVID-19 pandemic will assist in these ongoing preparations. Over the next 2 days, islanders and businesses will have the opportunity to engage in the various sessions and ask questions or raise issues for ministers and officials to answer. We will continue to keep islanders and businesses up to date with the latest information and what preparations we need to make as an island to ensure we are as best prepared as we possibly can be. Our website, gov.je/Beyond Brexit, will be regularly reviewed and updated as further clarity becomes available. During the course of the event, you can ask questions by emailing beyondbrexitevent@gov.je, tagging #BeyondBrexit on social media, or using #BeyondBrexit on the Slido app. Finally, the full schedule for the next 2 days can be found at gov.je/Beyond Brexit Event. I'm now going to pass over to my ministerial colleagues who will outline the current status of negotiations, our preparations and take any questions. Thank you for listening.
To this virtual Beyond Brexit conference. We know that all islanders and businesses and those that will be taking part are not only having to think about the effects of the end of the transition period, but of course we are also, as a community, individuals and businesses fighting the effect of COVID-19 and rising cases of the virus in our near neighbours to the north, the United Kingdom, and of course in France. And so we really appreciate the time that you are taking to join with us today and tomorrow. But it remains important that we continue to prepare, as we have done for the last number of years, for the end of the transition period at the end of December 2020. And as the Chief Minister reminded you, there are a number of events throughout the course of today and tomorrow. Ministers and officials are available to answer your questions. And I remind you that we are using the Slido app, so please do go to slido.com and send in your questions throughout the event using #BeyondBrexit. And the more people that get involved and the more questions that we have, I think the more fruitful and useful these 2 days and this virtual conference will be. We all know that we live in uncertain times, and we see from not only our own media but international media that these talks have not yet reached a conclusion, and in fact as we speak here the talks between the European Union and the United Kingdom will resume in perhaps a more intense or have a more intense nature to endeavour to reach a conclusion. But we, as I've said, in Jersey have been ready for whatever the outcome is for the last number of years. If of course, those talks which resume today do not reach a conclusion. And there is what we have previously referred to as no deal, which is now being referred to, just to add extra confusion, no further negotiated outcome. Then we must all be prepared. I believe absolutely that we in Jersey are prepared for a deal or for no further negotiated outcome. Our negotiations at ministerial level and at official level have continued at pace throughout the lockdown, through virtual meetings on a daily basis. And we have continued to liaise with all relevant UK government departments. We've spoken to our colleagues in France and, of course, our colleagues in Brussels to ensure that Jersey's position and Jersey's policy aims throughout this negotiation are well understood and are well communicated for the benefit of all islanders and all island business. Of course, at the same time, which we won't be focusing on over the next 2 days, we've also been engaging with the Department for International Trade and relevant ministers in London to ensure that we are also being considered and our policy aims are being appropriately considered and communicated and fed into the rest of the world free trade negotiations which are ongoing. So, as I said, this is a dynamic and unpredictable period, and some of the questions that islanders and businesses will have cannot be answered with certainty because there are still a variance of possible outcomes. But that does not mean we can just sit on our hands. We must continue to prepare for this possible no deal. I am confident, and hopefully you will be, after these 2 days of events, confident that whatever the 1st of January 2021 might bring, we can be prepared and we can face the future together as a community and deliver on the opportunities that this new relationship with Europe will bring for us. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. David, who is the official leading on the liaison with Task Force Europe, that's the body of officials headed by Lord Frost, will now give a short presentation and then we will endeavour to answer any questions that you might have, which will bring us to a conclusion of this first session. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister and Chief Minister. I'm David Walwyn, Director External Relations, and have been dealing with Brexit since 2015, before the referendum. If you've got a sense that there hasn't been panic on this side of the government, it's because we've had a very clear strategy right from the start. Even when you're dealing with uncertainty, there is a strategy that you deploy. Basically, you set your aims, you get your resources together, you train them up, you get prepared to act quickly, and you communicate. Those have been the 5 elements of the strategy to date, and I hope this will give some reassurance that as we go into this last phase, we will also be as stable and secure as possible. Over the last 4 years or so, we've looked ahead. Our strategy was, and largely remains, to continue with the benefits that we had enjoyed under the old relationship, which was Protocol 3 of the 1972 Treaty of Accession. We were prepared for this, and at the referendum, we put forward 2 papers, one based on a leave vote, one based on a remain vote. Obviously, we ripped up the latter, but it showed we were forward-thinking at that time and remains so. Then in our analysis of important relationships, we realised that it was our trade with the United Kingdom that really counted very much for Jersey. And a lot of work has gone on actually behind the scenes to ensure that our trading relationship with the UK remains unchanged beyond the 1st of January next year. And on the 23rd of November, the Minister for External Relations signed a customs arrangement with the United Kingdom that we had been negotiating for the previous 9 months, which guarantees the free trade between ourselves and the United Kingdom. The second contingency that we saw was we did not know what the outcome of the negotiations on trade between the UK and EU would be. Jersey was not a member of the WTO, and so we established extension of WTO membership to Jersey. And a letter bringing that into effect was sent in October 2019. So the important contingency work that was necessary has already been put in place. We're now at this very interesting final phase, and as the Minister said, this afternoon talks will resume between the Commission and UK officials. I've been, as the Minister said, involved with Task Force Europe. It will be a very challenging few days. What's new, though, is that there will be legal texts out there from this afternoon, and comparison between UK and Commission legal texts will take place. This is new. There hasn't been a resolution of the fundamental problems. However, there is this commitment to intensified discussions, which will continue over the next 4 days and resume next week. So we also have been preparing for a range of scenarios. And what have we been doing in terms of training the troops? Well, we thought that the EU-Canada agreement would be something that we could work on as a proxy for a UK-EU agreement. So scores of officials have worked on checking how we could comply and work with an agreement along those lines. So we've gone through rehearsals, we've tried it all out. We don't know the exact terms of the upcoming agreement, but we have already been going through the possibilities in great detail. Also, there will be sessions during this communications exercise relating to no further negotiated outcome, no deal. But the experiences that we've had from previous no-deal preparations relating to securing supply lines, to actually having stocks of certain key items, those were all very helpful for the COVID planning as well, when one was talking about personal protective equipment, supply lines of medical matters. And this will play forward into the 1st of January next year, when we move into the phase when the United Kingdom is out of the EU from a trading point of view as well. And finally, communications. We have had Ready for Brexit campaign a year ago. We've also had Jersey Ready for Trade, where we consulted about the trade options facing us and the opportunities. And now we have this campaign which is going on these 2 days and all the way up to the end of the year. It's so important that we are communicating with you and we get your feedback and get questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. So I'm joined now by my colleague ministers to answer questions or answer them with the information that we have at hand now. As I've said, these negotiations, and as David has said, will resume this afternoon, focusing probably on legal text at a worker level. But of course there are still those thorny political issues to be resolved. So I'm joined by the Deputy Chief Minister, but of course importantly is also the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, and is at the heart of ensuring that we continue to have a strong economy throughout whatever is negotiated. I'm joined also in the room by the Home Affairs Minister. He and his officials have been preparing for all eventualities, possibly it's fair to say, with changes to computer systems and regulations and legislation, the longest of any particular department. And we are joined this morning virtually by our good friend, the Environment Minister. Of course, his officials and department are right at the heart of some of those issues which are still to be resolved. So thank you for all of you joining us on this session this morning, and we come to look at questions. So we have the Slido screen in front of us, and the first question is, what has Jersey done to ensure our voice is heard in the negotiations? And of course, as David has just outlined, not only have we been communicating with relevant ministers in the United Kingdom government, but he has been in what recently has been daily conversations with senior negotiators in Task Force Europe. We have been clear on what our policy outcome we were aiming for right from the start of this negotiation, which, as David described it, can best be described as a continuation of the relationship that we currently have with the European Union, which of course is not a member, but is through a small protocol which is focused on goods. We are absolutely satisfied that our position has been represented, and it is clear to Brussels what we are seeking to have out of this negotiation. And in a nutshell, I can describe that as a goods for goods deal and a fish for fish deal. It's very important to us that those two issues are separated. Of course, we know from the negotiations with the United Kingdom that there is a desire to bring them together, but we are very much making that case separate, and those two issues, keeping them separate. And those two aims would best replicate what we currently have through Protocol 3. So we have those conversations, but we are absolutely clear that our interests and our positions are being represented to Brussels. But of course, as Brussels have said, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. And we know that not yet everything is agreed. The second question is, how are we going to maintain our close historical, economic and cultural links with our nearest neighbour, France, post a Brexit we didn't choose? And if I may, first of all, come to the Deputy Chief Minister to talk about the economic links which he has been building with colleagues with France, and then I might just come to the Home Affairs Minister, who'll talk perhaps not from his ministerial role but from his parochial role. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Our historic and cultural links with France, it's probably fair to say, are part of our DNA here in Jersey. They go back centuries, and we're very proud of them. Our economic links are probably just as important. We have a strong and productive relationship with France, and we have trade with France. We have strong tourism connections, and those will continue, albeit perhaps we might be following different processes and different procedures. Our relationships with the regions, especially Brittany and Normandy, are also important and very strong. And for example, we have an agreement with Normandy to share their stand at the Salon Agriculture in Paris every year. We've been doing that for a number of years, and that's helped us strengthen and build upon the foundations of trade we have with them. And that agreement still stands, and we're going to continue to work closely with them on that. So challenges ahead, but I'm sure we will find a way to continue to maintain our strong economic and cultural links with France.
Len?
Yeah, surely. Yes, I think Lynn's absolutely right. The historical links obviously won't change, but also on the cultural side, we've got very strong links through the parishes with the twinning arrangements with many towns in Normandy. I think most parishes have a twin town, almost all in Normandy, but I'm pleased to say that God's Own Paris and Clement has actually moved that on, and we have a twin town in Brittany, which is proving very successful. Obviously, in the last few months, it's been very difficult to keep close association with those towns, but there's no doubt in my mind that will continue and develop into the future.
Thank you. And of course, we have the existing very strong links with Normandy, with the Department Le Manche, and with our colleagues in Brittany. They range really from student links to support for unemployed links, to artistic links, to literature links, to language links, to law links, and all of those we reconfirmed at the most recent regional summit with Normandy that we wished to continue. And of course, John, we're no doubt going to come on to fishing, so we'll talk about those fishing links later. We've got those as well, which are very important to our colleagues in France. So the next question. Does the state's government recognise the unfairness of islanders having to suffer the effects of a referendum in which few islanders had a say? I think let's just be clear. First of all, any islanders that had a say, it was by right of the fact that they had previously been resident in the United Kingdom. It was not by any right inferred upon them because of their residence in Jersey. We very clearly did not have a say on the UK's membership of the European Union because we were not, are not, and will not be members of the European Union in the future. But has it created difficulties for islanders? We absolutely accept that. There will be changes to the length of time that islanders can visit Europe. There will be extra border requirements. There will be requirements on travel. All of those sorts of issues we will have to deal with because of the decision by the United Kingdom to exit the European Union. Of course, the other side of the coin is that for 40 or so years we have benefited greatly from the UK's membership to the European Union, and we've had a very high degree of freedom to introduce legislation that we thought was appropriate to our economy, that was flexible, but allowed us access to European markets in an unhindered way. And so it may feel unfair now. We could argue that actually we've benefited greatly and now we are returning to a more normal position. But that's not to say that if there is a deal and our policy position is accepted and factored into such a deal, then I think a lot of those unfairnesses that alluded to in the question can be dealt with. We come to another question. What protections do we have in place for Jersey businesses in the event of a no further negotiated outcome? I'm not quite clear what the questioner is referring to there. Of course, Senator Farnham, would you like to have a first stab, and then I'll come back and.
Well, the vast majority of our trade is done with the UK, and as such, it will be very much business as usual with the UK, and we are fortunate, as COVID has shown us. Despite all the challenges, we have a strong economy. The economy has been coping very well with the challenges, not without, of course, its share of pain for some sectors. So we will be going into 2021 still with a reasonably strong foundation and prepared for the recession that is going to follow. But we have, working closely with our arm's length organisations such as Jersey Business and the other bodies that promote us, have been working on some very good plans and strategies to quickly rebuild the economy. Those businesses that trade with France and other parts of the EU, well, we know that's still a little bit up in the air at the moment because of what's happening in the UK, and I think we all very much hope we come to a satisfactory conclusion that will allow us to trade as easily and as fairly as possible. But we are in close contact with many of the businesses who are like us, are waiting to hear what the outcome will be and undertake to work closely with them to help manage them through the process.
Thank you. I won't add to your comprehensive answer there. We come to a question now. When do you plan to engage with industry on fisheries and agricultural matters? Of course, at a high level, this is the second or third big showcase or set piece event of engagement, but Deputy Young, your officials and yourself have been certainly engaging with the fisheries industry extensively throughout this process.
Yes, I first of all want to add to what you've said. The amount of support that our Minister has had from the team with a daily flow of information from the negotiations have been really important. Of course, the difficulty we've had is that they are negotiations, and of course the issues of fisheries is very sensitive, and therefore it's not been possible to, as it were, fully expose those details to the light of day. But of course now we are at a crucial point. We've set out what we want to achieve in fishing. We've had communications, not just we've had communications with the UK, and we are really having now to wait to see how things go over the weekend. But in the meantime, as the Economic Development Minister said, we are keeping in close touch with those businesses who are particularly affected by the trade and aquaculture and indeed fisheries with the EU. And so, but equally, of course, in parallel, we've had to make preparations for the no further negotiated outcome situation, if that is the case. And I think, as you've said, Minister, that Jersey, as ministers, once we know that, we will make our own decision, our own judgment of which is best for Jersey. So I don't know if you want me to go further than that at the moment, Ian, but I think that's the kind of big picture. It's very sensitive, difficult, because of the way that fishing has been put right at the centre stage. But nonetheless, I think all of us are doing our best, and I've got a terrific officer team in place to help us get the best outcome for Jersey for the future.
Thank you, John. And of course, Deputy Chief Minister, your officials have been liaising throughout this as well with the agricultural industry. The next question is, how will Jersey residents be able to drive in the EU after the end of the transition period? But I see also there's another question slightly further down which is very much connected, because the simple answer to driving will be that islanders will need to have an international driving permit. Again, Constable, you'll know this from your other role. I would advise islanders to go to their parish hall. There are two types of these permits, and depending on which European country one wishes to drive to, one needs to decide which one to get, and that's because there are two different conventions covering driving across Europe. Broadly speaking, the majority of European countries are covered by one, apart from Spain. So if you're driving through Spain as well as the others, you need to get, as I understand it, both of them. But I wonder if we could just take that, what measures have we put in place to allow EU nationals to continue? Sorry. No, that is not the question I was reading it to be. I wonder, Home Affairs Minister, if you could just tell us a little bit about what islanders are going to have to do and what restrictions there will be for them to live and work in the EU at the end of the transition period, please.
Well, as far as working and living, working in the EU, like for ourselves, they will people from here will be able to holiday in the EU as per normal, but working and living in the EU will be different. I think, if I remember rightly, they would only be able to live there for 180 days in any particular year, and to work would also need a visa. But I think the question I see there is what measures we've put in place to allow EU nationals to continue to work in Jersey, and that of course is somewhat different. But the major thing that we have put in place, as has happened in the United Kingdom, that any EU nationals who actually live in Jersey currently, if they apply for settled status, they will be able to continue to live and work in Jersey as they have done. Many have been here for many years, but any who arrive before the end of this year will be able to apply for settled status or pre-settled status and continue to live and work in Jersey, unless they leave for a period of more than 5 years. So they will be absolutely secure in their work and in the facilities in Jersey.
Yes, you're right to point out that I misread the question. So we've got the issue of the settled status regime that you and your officials are overseeing and working hard to make sure as many people are registered as can be, and they will have another I think 6 to 9 months after the end of the transition period to continue that registration. So we encourage all of those EU citizens who are currently resident to do that. But then, of course, you, Minister, announced the changes that would be in place post the transition period yesterday, alongside the new controls more generally for migrations. I don't know if you want to just say a little bit about those.
Yeah, well, sure. There will continue to be the two routes for EU nationals to come to work in Jersey, as currently there are for non-EU nationals. And that's where there's the 3-year skilled worker route, where there are proven skills gaps from Jersey, and people cannot find the skills in Jersey or the skills in the common travel area, and a 3-year visa can be granted, and that will also now apply from the 1st of January next year to EU citizens as well. It's for shortage skills area, where people will be able to come to Jersey, apply to come to Jersey. They will need a visa. They will need a 3-year work permit. They will clearly need the offer of a job. They will need to have English language skills. They will need to have criminality checks and so on. But that situation will exist now and will basically continue, but involve EU citizens as well. The other area is the short-term work permit and visa. And that currently is granted to the industries of agriculture, fishing and hospitality, where we will allow a number of non-CTA citizens, in other words, people from the EU and other parts of the world, to come in on a 9-month contract to work in these industries, and then they will have to leave for 3 months before they're able to come back again. That will avoid them developing settlement rights. But so those are the 2 routes available that are available now and will continue to be available, but will include EU citizens from the 1st of January.
So I think it's fair to say that we, and there will be sessions throughout the course of the 2 days, would encourage businesses who have historically perhaps had a good number of EU citizens coming to work in their businesses, either on a temporary or seasonal basis, or on a longer term basis, to make contact with department officials so that they know exactly what they need to provide, together with Jersey Business, so that they can support them in completing any necessary application forms. And sectors like agriculture, Senator Farnham, as you know, they go out to various countries and seek to recruit a bit more en masse. I'd encourage those as well to make contact with either departments or Jersey Business to get the support that they need now, so that they can be ready come the beginning of next year and January, when we know, for example, in agriculture it will be the potato planting season. Nearly said picking season, but that would be an exceptionally good year. The potato planting season, so that they can be prepared. But we'll be talking about more of that detail throughout the course of these 2 days. We now have a question: how do we protect and develop our relationship with the EU? I think Senator Farnham started to discuss this when he was talking about the strong economic links that he and his officials and others have built up with Normandy, but also in Paris as well. We in the Department or Ministry for External Relations have created a new EU engagement team. We have the joint Channel Island office in Brussels, the joint Channel Island office in Caen, but those 3 extra people that we've created, the EU Directorate, are engaging directly with capitals and with countries in the European Union. So as you can imagine, their work is focused on the major European countries. So that for us primarily, of course, is France and in Paris, and they're working alongside the British Embassy, both in Paris and in Germany, and in Berlin, and they will continue to build that relationship. It's something that we'll continue to keep under review, because we have known from the start that as the UK transitions to not being a member of the European Union, and therefore the office that they have in Brussels and our office will need to engage in a fuller way with various partners, and that will require more resource and more people to make sure that we have the same influence that we had previously, and of course to build on that influence. And so we have a plan, we have people, and we have resources in place to ensure that that takes place. will local students looking to study in the UK be affected? Will they have to pay more after Brexit? So we don't have the Education Minister with us this morning. Local students looking to study in the UK will continue in the same way that they do now. However, it is fair to say that we are engaging with the UK Department for Education in regard to some universities wanting to treat Jersey students as international students. Those of you with family at university know that there is a pretty hefty differentiation between a domestic student fee and an international student fee, sometimes to the tune of £20,000 or £30,000 more. And so we are engaging with the Minister for or Secretary of State for Education in the UK to ensure that the UK's policy is clearer than it perhaps is today, to make sure that our students going to the UK continue to be treated as domestic students from a fees charged perspective. I think that answers as well the second part. How long will a no-deal Brexit... I should be sitting nearer the screen. Those of you who see that my eyesight obviously gets worse as I get older. How will a no-deal Brexit affect Jersey's finance industry generally and its access to EU financial markets specifically? Of course, in regards to services, we've never been in the European Union for services, and therefore we won't in any future negotiated agreement. And we've had a plan in place, not only within government, but also JFL and firms individually, to grow their market share around the globe and not be so UK and EU focused. And that's led us to the situation where we are today, where around half of the flows in and out of Jersey are not UK or EU focused, and that sets us in a good position for whatever agreement the UK gets with the EU around services, and therefore we believe that our finance industry remains in the strong position that it is. Of course, we've invested through JFL in a new office very recently in New York to see US flows through Jersey, creating and using Jersey structure. Some of those are funds investing into Europe, but equally are funds and structures holding international assets, but just using Jersey as a base. JFL will be coming forward with my support to be seeking to broaden the ambit of that global nature and looking for new markets. Of course, that's not just in response to Brexit, that's also in response to the economic downturn that we will be feeling because of COVID-19. So as ever, we are going to have to pedal harder than we have to stand still, but I believe that pedalling harder won't just allow us to stand still, but it will allow us to grow that sector, particularly aligned with issues like fintech and regtech, using technology to deliver quality services to our customers around the globe, not just in the UK and Europe. So another question: how resilient are our supply chains in the event of a no further negotiated outcome? Deputy Chief Minister, would you like to?
Thank you, Ian. We have very strong and robust supply chain links. Contingency plans have been very well tested initially during the initial response to the pandemic. and so we're keeping a close eye on that. But they are highly dynamic, and we're fortunate to have such strong links. So there's no cause for concern there. We know just how important they are to us, because everything, just over 95% of what we consume is imported. So we've paid special attention to ensuring those links remain robust. I'm not sure, Ian, if you wanted to add anything, because you've been
yes,
involved in some of the contingency.
It's fair to say, Linda, your officials have been working exceptionally hard in liaising with those who make up the supply chain throughout this period. So that's the logistic companies, the ferry companies, the ports in the UK, and ensuring that they work closely with the Hampshire Local Resilience Authority. And my understanding from some of the larger retailers here is that they feel, because of all that work that your officials have done, because of the preparedness for COVID-19 and the disruption that we saw there to supply chains, that some of those supermarkets feel in a stronger and more prepared position than they were perhaps a year or so ago when we were thinking about no deal Brexit previously. So I really do pay tribute to those officials who've been working very hard on our behalf to ensure that those supply lines are resilient.
Yeah, I can echo those thoughts to the officials, and of course the message is to islanders to carry on with their normal patterns of shopping. We often experience a little bit of disruption over the winter due to weather conditions, but the message is can carry on business as usual on that front.
Thank you. John, I see there is another question about fishing. I think you answered your previous question very diplomatically, but I don't know if you'd like to have a stab at this one. What fisheries agreement is Jersey looking to secure?
Right, well, as I think in your introduction, Ian, you said we are seeking to try and retain the position that we have now as best we can under Protocol 3. Of course, we have to, Protocol 3 is gone from the 1st of January, and what we are seeking to make sure is that we can have access for our fishing and aquaculture industries, have access to markets in the EU where the vast majority of our produce is exported to at the moment, and that of course would need to be equivalent access in the same way that our neighbours are able to accept that market as well, and that means of course tariff free. Now obviously that's what we've sought to maintain. We won't know until probably, I understand the 25th or over the weekend, whether or not that's what we're seeking to achieve is successful. But of course, we recognise that part and parcel of that is that we do need to make sure that all of the vessels that access our fishing waters as part of that equivalence arrangement means that equal standards in terms of sustainability and conservation of the fishing stocks, that the arrangements ensure that is very much an equal, and that there are no imbalance, and that we can make sure that we have for the long-term future a sustainable fishery. So it's such an agreement would be, those elements are critical. And that means, and I think that presents us with quite a big challenge. It's a very controversial area, but we've made it quite plain what our expectations are of that, if that situation is to be. I think that's what you described. I think what I've tried to explain there is, I think, what you described as a fish for fish objective. I don't know if you want to add to that, Ian.
Thank you very much, John. No, it is, of course, one of the critical areas that the UK continues to negotiate on, that together with what used to be called the level playing field, which is around equivalence of regulation and support to business, is the access to waters, access to markets, and I think that's where the focus of the political side of the negotiations is going to be over the next few days, whilst the officials consider the legal text, as David was reminding us early. So for us, of course, the fundamentally important point is sustainability of our waters, and there needs to be some changes to ensure sustainability, but equally there needs to be economic sustainability for our fishing community. That's both fishing and the aquaculture part of the industry, and if they are to have economic sustainability, they also need access to markets to create that sustainability. So it is controversial, we recognise that, Minister, but it's important that we continue to negotiate with those principal points in mind. For the United Kingdom, they are possibly in a slightly different position of thinking and wishing to secure as the most important policy output management of their own waters. We come now to a final question, so we're going to finish early, which is always good, which I think is a very similar question to one that Home Affairs Ministry have also already answered. What about the ability of non-EU citizens to work and live in Jersey? If you just want to perhaps reiterate what you've already said.
Yeah, there won't be a significant difference to what happens now. We have a skilled worker route. We will also have an essential worker route from the 1st of January, but will also apply to EU citizens as well. And that means that the worker will need a visa prior to arrival, have an offer of employment with the necessary control of housing at work law permission. The job itself will need to be at least at A-level standard, and the applicant will need to have demonstrate a appropriate level of the English language. And if all of those things are in place, and there's proven to be an island shortage, or the job is of significant benefit to the island, a 3-year visa and work permit could be granted. So that will apply to non-EU citizens and EU citizens. And as I mentioned before, there's also the short-term, relatively unskilled labour, which will be a 9-month permission, and that will apply to non-EU and EU citizens from the 1st of January. But I did speak about that earlier, and that's mainly in the hospitality, agriculture, and fishing industries. Although if other sectors can show a shortage, then they may well be able to join that scheme as well, if they can make a robust case that they need to employ people from outside of the common travel area.
Thank you very much indeed. From that perspective, I know, Minister, that you and your officials remain flexible. You want to facilitate businesses to continue to thrive and prosper and grow, and have the ability to appropriately bring labour which is going to add great value to our economy and therefore to islanders more broadly. throughout what has been a very challenging period of pandemic, and I'm grateful for all the work that you and your officials are doing and will continue to do in that regard. So thank you everyone for joining us on this first session of the virtual conference Beyond Brexit. Let's be clear. The United Kingdom has already left the European Union. They did it earlier this year. We are living in the transition period. So there will be change on the 1st of January. We can't be absolutely certain about what that change will be, but we can be certain that there will be change because Brexit has already happened. What we are focusing on now and what is in the heat of the discussion is what that future economic relationship with the EU will look like. So thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Please do join those sessions which are relevant to you as individuals or relevant to you as businesses. We as a team of ministers and our officials stand ready to support and help in any way that we can, with any answers that are available to us, as I know do Jersey Business and other arms of government. Please don't put it off until tomorrow or next week or the month after. We believe that we are prepared, and I know that many of you are prepared, but we just want to ensure that we are all prepared. Thank you very much indeed.